Hello everyone! I'm gonna be telling a story today, and it's actually, I need you guys to keep in mind that this is pretty dark at times, and it might talk into subjects of like dark thoughts and many other triggering topics like bullying, abuse, all that thing, you know. So keep in mind going into this, just so you're aware beforehand. So the story starts with our main character, Oliver. He just woke up and he is sketching on his table. He feels an insatiable hunger all the time. He's a vampire, but he refuses to drink blood of any kind, making him hungry and sick. And to compensate, he eats a lot of human food. Yeah, oftentimes just makes him feel still very hungry, and it doesn't do very good for vampires, human food. He goes out of his room to go to school, and he stumbles upon his mom. His mom seems very happy, and of course asks him if he has eaten any blood recently. And when she hears that he did not, she gets very happy because his mom really dislikes the fact that he's a vampire. He's not even her biological son. He was just left on her doorstep one day. Literally. With those notes saying, "This child is now your responsibility by the legal government." Imagine having to take care of a child because the government tells you to. Basically what happened to her. Thank you for the hat pets. So he goes to school, which school for him is basically a living nightmare. He goes there only to see his bully, Hazard, which Hazard is just like the stereotypical bully. No particular reason for his motive, apparently, at least from Oliver's side. Hazard just yells at him over and over again, berating him about how stupid, how he doesn't do good in anything that he does. He fails at school, he's rarely there, and when he's there, he's just there to make a fool of himself. And Hazard locks him up in the janitor's closet. And he's locked there because it's kind of locked from the outside. So he's in there until the end of school. His mind is cluttered, he cannot think straight. He's thinking to himself, if he wasn't a vampire, he should be able to die really easily, but, you know, he's a vampire. It's kind of difficult. He climbs to the rooftop, knowing that he can't die. He still jumps down anyways. He, of course, lives, very annoyed to himself, wishing that he was human. He knocks out and ends up falling asleep on the ground, blood all over him. When he opens his eyes again, he's in another room. And in that room, he sees a boy he'd never seen before. That boy asks him if he's a vampire. And because vampires in this world is able to recognize one another. So, this is Oliver's first other vampire he ever met. They end up having a sort of connection in some way. They end up having a connection, they start talking. Henry introduces him to his family, and his whole entire family is of vampires, which is a big change for Oliver, which honestly never had a chance to talk to other vampires at all, or connect with his culture, despite the fact that he's a vampire himself. So, every day from then on, he starts wanting to see Henry more and more. But, of course, he has to go home eventually, and he goes home. He doesn't tell his mom that there is a vampire now in his life, a friend that he has that is a vampire, because he knows that his mom will not like that at all. He goes to sleep and goes to school the next day, where he sees his bully once again, Hazard. But this time, the bully doesn't really do anything. he just has this guilty look in his face and walks up to Oliver and apologizes. He honestly didn't know that he was causing that much pain in Oliver because he saw what happened that day. He was there. He's the one who helped Henry bring Oliver to his house. Oliver finds out. Very strange, huh? You start thinking, why would his bully, the person that hurt him so much, would be apologizing? Is it just because he wants to feel better about himself? So, Oliver does not accept his apology and goes on with his day and starts talking most of the time with Henry. Turns out Henry goes to that school too, just in another class because he's older. He's quite a bit older, so he's in another compartment of the school. So every time a break, every time anything happens, he's with Henry. But Hazard doesn't want to leave the subject alone and keeps following Oliver around. He says to Oliver that he's gonna keep following him until one day he's worthy of redemption. Thus, they become a trio. Very lovely trio. They hang out every day, do little adventures, silly adventures, the classic slice of life stuff. Which is the calmest moment of the story, if I have to say so. But one day, the two friends, basically Hazard and Henry, start noticing that Oliver is really weak and agitated all the time. He eventually stops going to school. It's because he doesn't drink any blood, even though he needs to. So he's sick at home, hardly able to leave his bed. His mom refuses to give him blood, no matter if there is blood banks for vampires that exist. If there's a vampire that is hungry and hasn't drank any blood, there's 3 departments for that. But his mom still refuses to do so. She just wants a normal human child. But Oliver is not that. Not that at all. And his friends, being worried, decides to visit his home. And this is the first encounter that these two friends have with Oliver's mom. And they start realizing that she doesn't really take care of Oliver as a vampire. Tries to treat him as a human, despite the fact that he isn't one. So they end up realizing that if they want to end up being able to talk to Oliver, they needed to be smart and pretend that they were just here because, like, Oliver had a fever or something. They had to make up an excuse that would fit a human sickness. Even though, in a way, Oliver was just starving. So Hazard is distracting the mom while Henry ends up going to Oliver's room. Which I don't know how he finds it, but he finds it. Vampires have a weird connection that I have a hard time explaining. Thus, Oliver and Henry meet again face to face in the room, staring at each other. Oliver doesn't want to be seen in a weak state, so he tries to hide. He's very flustered about this whole entire situation. But Henry doesn't give up and gets closer to Oliver. And even though he's a vampire himself, he still offers his own blood, which is enough to stop a bit of hunger of another vampire. So, Oliver, being starved for so long, bites Henry and drinks a bit of his blood. Yep. And this is one thing about the story that might not make a lot of sense, but vampires in the story, when they drink blood from something like straight from the source, they're able to feel a bit of the emotions of what the other is feeling. Thus, Oliver ends up realizing that Henry feels a lot of worry, guilt, and love for Oliver, which ends up starting a romance arc between Henry and Oliver. Of course it does. And at some point, Hazard is able to also enter the room, and of course Oliver feels a little bit better. They go outside together, and weeks pass. Oliver and Henry are now dating. At some point, his mom in the front yard catches Oliver drinking blood from Henry. And in a rage, she basically grabs a shovel and goes to hit Oliver, but how do I say this? Henry jumps in front of Oliver to stop the impact from hurting Oliver, because, you know, he loves him. But different from Oliver, Henry is just a half-blood. He's not a full vampire, thus he can still die as easily as a human. So, he ends up getting his head smashed in and dies, which leaves Oliver staring at the ground, looking up at his mom, asking why she would do this, crying, hoping that Henry was still alive. And Hazard ends up seeing the situation and jumps in to comfort Oliver, try to calm him down in the best way that he can, but everything in Oliver's mind is super, super messy, and he can't really think straight. Weeks, months pass, and he hasn't processed the whole entire scenario. He started living with Hazard, which been taking care of him because he doesn't really do anything anymore. He just stays in his room, locked up, not understanding that Henry was gone now. He ends up deciding to find a way to bring Henry back. Thus starts the adventure of Hazard and Oliver. Hazard is always trying to ask for forgiveness for his past, but also just wanting to keep Oliver safe from himself, in a way, from going mad. So they go everywhere, place to place, but it's a never-ending chase to a result that will never really be very fruitful. But they end up finding something that's able to bring him to another world. And in that other world, Henry was alive, and there was a version of himself that was alive. Guess what? He kills that version of himself in that universe and takes its place. And in that moment, he realizes that a vampire can indeed kill another vampire. But in that world, Henry also dies, protecting Oliver. So he goes world to world, world, trying to find one where Henry's alive. And he comes to the conclusion that no matter which world it is, if he exists in it, Henry will die. So, in multiple worlds, he would just remove that version of himself that existed in there and leave that world alone. And after doing that for God knows how many decades, he returns to his own world. Finally happy that at least a few versions of Henry out there in the multiverse will be able to live. Such starts the arc of what I call the cafe shop, which is him and Hazard working on a cafe shop and just taking care of things. You know, greeting customers, living a happy life. But one day, guess what? A version of Henry pops through the portal and starts fighting Oliver. And of course, Oliver does not want to fight Henry because, you know, he loves Henry. Doesn't matter which universe it is. But that Henry is angry that he killed the version of Oliver that existed in his universe and was there for revenge. Thus, they start fighting, but Henry soon realizes that Oliver cannot die by a half vampire's hand, so he ends up just giving up and keeping a close eye on Oliver. So now the three are running that cafe together. That version of Henry doesn't care for this version of Oliver. And this is kind of where the story ends. Yeah, that's where the story ends. Very lovely, isn't it? I don't know who enjoyed this story, but hopefully some of you did. No, it's kind of on the dark side. Hopefully you enjoyed and come back for more.